Okay, so the recording started. Welcome to Make the Cut and Popup Card Studio question and answer webinar. Tonight is April 8th, 2014. Thank you for joining. Also thank you to Julie and Susan who are working in the background. And I've already gone through the ground rules, so we'll get started. Be thinking of some questions because each week I start this thread for people to post their questions ahead of time. And this week we have one question, and it's going to be a really short answer. So Nan asks the difference between SVG and SVGs. You'll see that you'll see SVGs referenced a lot. I know in Inkscape you can save a file as SVGs, and basically the only difference is between if you save something as SVG and then save the exact same thing as SVGs. It's just, in essence, a zipped version of that information. So if you open up a .svg file in a text editor, you'll see words that you can understand if you understand the SVG syntax. If you try to open up an SVGs file, it's like you're opening up a zip file. There's no wording in there. It's zipped. It's compressed. So that's the difference, and it uses a specific type of compression. They did it originally for doing SVGs over the web, but really most of the time SVGs are not that large, and I don't know that many people that actually use it anymore. So, Nan, hopefully that answered your question. I don't know how else to answer it other than that's what it is. Oh, does one work better in Make the Cut or Popup Card Studio than the other? I would always just use SVG. No reason to use SVGs. There's no reason to compress it. The nice thing about SVG is you can actually go in and edit it if you need to in a text editor. You'd have to know what you're doing, but you can do it. And other than that, Make the Cut should read both of them. Popup Card Studio, I believe, will read both of them, but I would just stick with the standard SVG. So that concludes our question and answer webinar for tonight. No, that concludes the questions from the thread. So I'm assuming there's no questions about that answer, though, right? There's nothing on that subject?
Only on SVG.
Okay.
Importing SVG into Popup Card Studio.
Okay. How would you move? Okay, so in Popup Card Studio, let me just open up my Popup Card Studio. To import SVG, you would just go to the import and then SVG file, and then you would select a particular SVG. This one, I think, was done by Dave. Oops. Try that again. Open. And it'll bring it in. Now, obviously, you have to size it for whatever card you're working on. When you import it, you should be on the plane that you want it to be on. So we're on the front plane. The back plane, but an 1/8 of an inch snapping, but 1 inch from the back, which is sort of the default. If I wanted to be further out than that or further, closer to the back than that, you should adjust it ahead of time. Otherwise, you can just, select it, do a Control X, which is the same thing as Edit Cut. Move your, let's say we wanted it at 1/2 inch. You move your position to 1/2 inch, and then Control V for paste. And both of those you can get to from the Edit menu. Most of the time, you'd also want to make sure that you flattened out the, any place where it's going to touch the bottom or where you're going to add an anchor to it. And you would do that through the cropping. And I normally do the cropping with exclusives. That means anything that's in my triangle. I know I'm cutting off a big portion of his foot, but if I do that, then you get nice flat spots. Maybe put a flat spot here for an anchor, and then you can resize them This probably went way more than your question was asking for. You can center them, drop them. And now because I made this flat, then you'll see that when I do I know I haven't put the anchor yet, but you'll see that when I do the print preview, we get good, fold lines there. Of course, then we would want to add the anchor. And we would do auto quad 2-point rec. Oh, I know why, because I'm not snapping up here. Make it easier. Okay. Now if you do a print preview, you'll see that we have everything in place now. Anchors, mountain fold, center fold, and then the valley folds. Okay, so Sue, did that answer your question? I don't see her responding back, so we'll go on to the next one here. Sue, if you need more information, just type in, anything additional that you'd like to know.
A related question is, can you show how to export SVG from Popup Card Studio, because that's necessary for importing into SureCuts-A-Lot, which is a question.
Yeah, and so there's two parts to exporting. So let me go back to the standard view here. When you export, you can, oops, sorry, I missed. Let me go back to selection mode here. Okay, so if we have something selected, like let's say we just put the line in and we want to now put this out to SVG, you have to be careful that when you do the export, if you just go to the SVG selection here, or menu item here, you're only going to get what's selected. So in this case, you're only going to get that lion. So we'll do a test lion 1.svg. And it's not going to be what you want. Hang on a minute. Let me... Where is my... Oops. There we go. Let me just bring it. I'm just going to let Internet Explorer render this here. So you can see it's just the lion. Probably not what you wanted if you want to import it into another program like Make the Cut or SureCuts-A-Lot. So when you do that, you want to make sure that when you go to export, you first pick project rendering, because that will give you the whole project. And then you would go to SVG file. And we'll do this test lion 2.svg. And you'll see then that we'll actually get the whole thing then. It's hard to see, but the cut lines go right to the edge here. Let me make this a little bit larger. So you get the the outside of the card, the fold lines and the valley lines. So, and this, how this gets exported is affected by how whatever rendering options you have. So if you render the hinge lines or the mountain lines or the valley lines as solid or different colors, they'll come out different colors and solid out here. If you scale it, obviously it'll do that as well. And also, I guess that's about it. So that's that. So did that answer, was there two parts to that question?
Well, the first part, it's actually about how to use a Popup Card Studio file with SureCuts-A-Lot. But in order to do that, they have to export as SVG. So that should do it. The only other thing is to import into SureCuts-A-Lot and cut to your cutter.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just catch up on reading here. Hang on just a minute. And Sue, I'll come back to you in just a minute. Yeah, so anything that you export, so the thing to know about shortcuts a lot, especially if you have the older version that works with the machine, shortcuts a lot expects, by default, I believe things are 72 DPI, which is a misnomer in the SVG world, but just work with me here. Make the cut puts it out at 90 DPI, and pretty sure there's options in shortcuts a lot to allow you to switch between the two. But you will see that, let's see if I can do this real quick here. I gotta get rid of these questions so they pop up. Just give me a second here. Let's open this with Notepad. No, let's not put Notepad. I don't know if I can show this to you, so give me a second here. Okay. So this is the SVG file that we're looking at, this line SVG file. You can see that it was created with Popup Card Studio. These are pretty much just comments up here. It follows the 1.1 standard. Anything with MTC in front of it is specific only to make the cut, so that's not a standard SVG thing. But you'll see that it defines, width and height of the project. In this case, because I have a 8-inch wide card and 5-inch, for each side, so that's 5 plus 5 would be 10. You don't have to worry about the view box. That just tells it how to render it. But this comes in, if you calculate these out, like 10 inches at 90 DPI, will give you 990 or 900 units. So that's the 90. That's where the 90 DPI comes in. And if you did the 8 times 90, you'd get to 720. Make the cut does expects that to be 90. Make the cut actually will figure it out based on the SVG file. Shortcuts a lot, I believe, especially the older version that works with the Cricut. Excuse me. Would have to. I think you have to specify whether it's 72 or 90. I think it gives you those options. I saw that there was another question while we're on this subject. Let me just bring up the questions again for me. I saw that there was a question about the Cricut whatever the new project is called, and Cricut Design Space. So someone took a SVG from Make the Cut and sent it to a friend. She opened it up in the Cricut Design Space and it came in too small, like 1 inch, and should have been 9. Chances are, I don't know anything about the Cricut Design Space, but if they follow the SVG standard, it should come in exactly right. Unfortunately, not a lot of people follow the SVG standards completely, and that's why you get some of these issues. But if again, in that program or that online program, the Design Space, if you have options of when you're bringing in SVGs, what the DPI is, or the number of points or number of units per inch, anything like that, if she sets it to 90, excuse me, it should come in correctly. Okay, so is there any questions about, oh wait, there's another 90 DPI. Now, so when I'm talking about the 90, so this is answering your question. So when I'm talking about the 90 DPI, dots per inch really is the wrong. When you think of SVGs, SVGs are scalable vector graphics, and it really, they can be any size, right? And you don't lose any resolution of them. It's not the same as DPI in raster images. But it's the way to specify that when I design something, if I designed it to be 1 inch, how do I tell other programs that interpret SVGs that whatever units I used is equal to 1 inch? It should be rendered in 1 inch. And that's using the coordinate system in SVG and view boxes and widths and that kind of stuff. but basically what it's saying is the user unit of 9 is there's 90 units, and that equals 1 inch. That's what the 90 dpi is. It's kind of hard to explain, but that's the 90 dpi is only relative to the SVG world, excuse me, the SVG exporting and make the cut and Popup Card Studio. If you're exporting a raster image, you get to choose, right, what your resolution is going to be. So I hope that answered your question. Again, the exporting from both Make the Cut and Popup Card Studio will create an SVG file that comes out to basically 9. These are all in user units, so if 900 fits the 10 inches, that means there's 90 units per inch. That's the 90 dpi. It should really be 90 UUPI, user units per inch. But you really don't specify that anywhere. It's calculated, basically, or interpreted. So that's that. And then somebody else suggested that if you open the file in Inkscape or Make the Cut, you can check the size and then enlarge it to that size in SureCut's-a-Lot. That works to an extent if it's not an SVG created by Make the Cut. There are some SVGs. Illustrator is a great example. In order for Illustrator, when you export SVG files from Illustrator, they do not follow the SVG standard. And if you open one of those up in Make the Cut, it'll work now because Andy coded around their problem. But if you open up an Inkscape, a 1-inch, if you did a 1-inch cube in Inkscape, excuse me, a 1-inch cube in Illustrator and open up an Inkscape, it would be only 0.8 of an inch. It has to do with the fact that they don't specify things correctly. In the SVG standard, I don't want to get too far into that, but just know that it doesn't always work. If you pull it into, and there are some SVGs that, in fact, there's a current thread on the forum. Somebody is pulling in some SVGs, I think, from SureCut's-a-Lot that were probably exported using the 72 dpi, and when they come into Make the Cut, they're smaller than they should be. And it's because SureCut's-a-Lot, at least in the 2 versions that she has, does not create a properly formed SVG file according to the standards. So when it comes in, comes in at Make the Cut. If it can't figure out, if it can't calculate what the DPI should be, it uses 90 DPI, because that in essence is what is defined by the SVG standard. So if you create it in 72 DPI, but whatever saves it doesn't form it properly, and you then bring it into another program like Inkscape or Make the Cut, and it comes at 90 DPI, it'll be smaller than what you designed it at, and vice versa. Okay, I'm all over the place here with the questions, but is there anything more about SVG and DPI or combinations thereof in these questions? Okay, so that should, I still have people with me, right? Susan, Julie, you're still there?
I'm still here,
okay.
But I'm trying to read fast.
Okay, I just wanted, there's no talking. It's like, oh, okay. Maybe I should unmute everybody, then I would know.
Why do SVGs open incorrectly sized on the Mac? Liz wants to know.
Okay, Liz, that was a Liz question. Mm-hmm. They really shouldn't. The opening it up on the Mac or on the PC into Make the Cut should behave the same way. Because I don't believe Andy uses any of the Windows functions that tell it, when it's interpreting SVG. So Liz, if you find an SVG file that opens up correctly on PCs and incorrectly on the Mac, please send that to me and explain what it's doing on the Mac and explain what it's doing on the PC. The person who has a thread open right now with a couple things wrong with she's on a Mac. It's really not a Mac issue. It's the files that she's bringing in. Those are the files that were created. She exported some files from Sure Cuts a Lot, and the 2 versions. Sure Cuts a Lot 2 does things a little bit differently than Sure Cuts a Lot 3, but they both come in too small, and that's the 72 versus 90 issue. And if you, a quick check for that is if it's too small in Make the Cut, it's very easy to increase something by a percentage. So if something comes in too small, just select everything that came in and here, I'm talking, I can show it to you. So if something came in, well, let's just create a square here. So if that came in too small, let me go. Remember I said if it was created in Illustrator, it would come in at 80%, basically 0.8 of an inch. So if it comes in too small, like this should be an inch square, and it looks smaller than an inch, which obviously it is, then if you select it and just multiply it by 125%, it will become the right size. If that happens, then more than likely it's a 90 DPI versus 72 DPI issue. And it has nothing to do with Mac versus PC. It has to do with how the SVG is saved, the actual format of the file, or the specification, not specification, the data in the file. In fact, there was a thread earlier, maybe it was last week, where he was bringing it in and he tried the control, he did a control V instead of control shift V. He tried to bring in it through, I think he was creating it in AutoCAD 2011 or Autodesk 2011, but it was coming in incorrectly. That also was a 72 versus 90 issue. So there's a lot to do with that, but the SVG standard itself is very it's large, and some people say it's not quite, like you read one spot and you could see that it might contradict itself in places. It's not that bad. It's just very complicated, and it handles a lot of things that most programs like Inkscape and Illustrator don't implement. But the things that are implemented, they should follow the standard, and the standard's been out there since 2000. The 1.1's been out there for a while, early 2000s, I think. Anyway, I've been rambling enough about that. So other SVG or DPI issues.
I did try this on Sure Cuts a Lot 2, and the issue that I'm having is that all the score lines and cut lines are importing all as a unit, and they won't break apart. So my recommendation would be to export in separate SVGs, like set it up to just export.
You're saying that Sure Cuts a Lot's not bring in the layer, like you can do like in Make the Cut, you would bring it in and then do a split or teach its own?
Well, Sure Cuts a Lot 2 wouldn't do it. There was no way I could break it apart. So maybe you could show in how to set it so that you're exporting no score lines and then export again to score lines.
Well, when you send it to the machine, you can specify that. Oops, export project rendering. So when you set it to here, you can turn things on and off. To export it to a SVG file, you're not given those options. So there's two things you could do. There's one you could export it SVG, bring it in to Make the Cut, and then just save each of the layers the way that you want them. Or you could have it rendered, and maybe I'm misinterpreting your issue here, but if you go to rendering options, you could turn these off one at a time, export it, come back, so I could turn off, everything but the cut lines, save it, go and export it to SVG. So let's do this line free. Then go in and, is this what you're doing, Julie? Go in and change the options again and say that I want to not render cut lines, but render all my fold lines.
Well, I didn't do it yet because I haven't had time, but I'm thinking that's the only way you're going to be able to get it to work in SureCuts Lot 2 is to export separately. So if there's a way to export separately, that's what we're looking for. So we have two files, one with the score lines and one with the cut lines.
Yeah, and I would say that my recommendation would not be to do it the way that I just did it. Let me just bring this up again. So there's with everything. Where's my files? Here's just the cut lines, and then, oops, I didn't want to get rid of it. I wanted to add a new one. Sorry. And then here's just the fold files, fold lines. So you can see this one has both of them. This is just the cut. This is just the fold, the score lines. And when you combine them, you get what would be doing. What I would say it'd be easier to do is just make the cut, bring in the whole thing. I just did a drag and drop. It's easier than going and doing the SVG import. But and then over here, just do to each its own. And then you can choose to do 3 different files if you want. The cut lines, the mountain folds, the valley folds, and the hinge folds. So you could actually have 4 layers. Or what I would do is select everything on this layer, and then just do a export to SVG file, and then that would be your cut lines, and then select these two pieces and export it as just export selection as SVG and save it there. Because what's going to happen if you're doing in Popup Card Studio, if you don't remember to set these rendering options back, the next project that you do from Popup Card Studio, or you render out and you think you're good, when you open it up, you'll be surprised. So the rendering options themselves weren't really meant to be something you change a lot. Luckily there's a default you can go back to. But, and I'm not sure why SureCuts Lot 2 wouldn't be able to open up, you wouldn't be able to separate them. But again, I haven't used that program, so.
Well, I've never had a problem separating layers before this, but I never tried Popup Card Studio. I usually don't have that issue, so I'm surprised there is an issue here.
Well, then to test it, I don't think it's Popup Card Studio. You never had it with Make the Cut stuff?
No, because there are layers, but then again, I don't work with SureCuts Lot 2 very much, and I can't remember that far back.
Yeah, well, to test it, you can just then take everything and export it from Make the Cut. But this is going to create a file almost identical to the one created by Popup Card Studio. So my suspicion is that you'll have problems either way. So anyway, that's 2 ways of doing that. So
thank you.
Okay, so where are we on the questions here? Let me just I'm going to start from the top here and see if we got everything. Oh, Sue, I told Sue I'd get back to her. I try to. Okay. So Sue, did we answer your questions? When I asked you if we answered your first question, you said thank you, and you tried to import an SVG file, and it was in layers. How do you fix that? Did our discussion about layers just answer that, or do you still have? Oh wait, Oh, wait. I'm sorry. That was the other way. Okay. So back to the original question: how to import into Popup Card Studio. You were saying that what you had was the SVG had layers, and it wasn't working properly. Is that what you're saying? And I'm going to just create layers here to each its own. 1, 2. That's not how you spell 2. Okay. Oops. Layer. Okay. So now, if we go into Popup Card Studio, and we're going to find where I put this here. I don't know if we can drag and drop into Popup Card Studio. We'll find out in just a second. If I can find these files again. Popup Card Studio. Okay, 4 layers. No. Okay, so let me try to do a file import. SVG file, and we were at Q&A. And it wouldn't let you, let me go back to your question now. You're saying that it wouldn't let you reduce correctly. Well, they should, I mean, everything should work correctly. I mean, if you can send me if you send me that file, then I can try it. If you email it to me at sbrianw@gmail.com, and I can take a look at it. There might be other issues in there, or I mean, SVG files really shouldn't be locked or unlocked, but were you able to do things within Make the Cut if you imported into Make the Cut, or was you getting the same issue there? Because I'm pretty sure most of the code for importing very similar between Make the Cut and Popup Card Studio. Okay, well, send me the file, and I'll take a look at it. Okay, so I think once I get the file, and if it doesn't have to be tonight either, but we'll go from there. Okay, so we'll come back to Sherry, we'll come back to your question about the Easter basket. Can I clip art files? Okay, Regina, you had a question about okay. Let me work on Regina's questions now. So Regina, so your first question was about clip art files, and you didn't really have a full question there. You said, can I clip art files on the internet? So I'm assuming you mean, can you import clip art files that you found on the internet? And are you talking about in Make the Cut? Excuse me, or are you talking about in Popup Card Studio? That'd be the first part. And your second, while you're answering that question, your second question about designing a pop-up card and Make the Cut and open in SureCuts a lot, you should be able to do that. Although it would probably be easier to design the pop-up card in Popup Card Studio, depending on exactly what type of pop-up card you're doing. But anything, you can design things in Make the Cut and import it into SureCuts a lot if you export it as SVG. So that should work. Did you come back to us? Okay, so clip arts, a lot of clip arts on the internet are let's get rid of some of these lines here. So if you're looking for, I don't know, rows, images, and we select, say, clip art. Oops. A lot of clip arts are, in essence, images, but very simple images, and they're, so the way to import them would be the same. So you can't import them directly into Popup Card Studio, because you can only import. You can either open PCS files or import SVG files. So you'd have to do, a pixel trace in Make the Cut first, or Inkscape, or I don't know if SureCut's has that capability. So let me just copy image here, go to my Make the Cut, and you would do a pixel trace. I just copied it, so it's in my clipboard, and we might want to do this by colors. So we have green, red, so let's 3 colors. So let's do try color schemes and just see what we get here. We need 4 because of the background. Oops. That should work. Let's make it a little larger here. Let's go on to contrast and break them up and get rid of that one. And then this one we probably want to be on the bottom and go black. We don't want to do that. This is just a quick example, but so here's my green, pieces, my black pieces, and my red pieces. So if you wanted all of it, you should be able to bring that in, export that as SVG. Actually, at this point, it'd actually be easier if you're going to go into Popup Card Studio. It'd be easier just to copy this. So I did a edit, a Control-C, which is the same thing as edit copy, and then you come over to Popup Card Studio, and you can Control-V it in, and you would still have the different, layers. It's kind of hard to see because it's so large, and the colors don't mean much in Popup Card Studio at this point. But so that'd be the easiest way to do it. Of course, you'd want to scale them probably first to make it something usable and Make the Cut, or Popup Card Studio. But so you can do it that way. Or if you wanted to go directly into SureCut's a lot, you could export this SVG and then import it as SVG into SureCut's a lot. Okay, so that answered those 2 questions, I believe, and then I think you had another one, but let's just see if we're going to do that one now, or... Okay, I'll look at that web. So the other question you had was the web page, and I'll look at that later. Okay. Okay, so I didn't catch the document and download it. Okay, so Jeanette, okay, so I'm going to mark this one. Jeanette's will do, we'll answer in a little bit. The Easter basket will answer. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up on all the questions here. Yeah, that one from Regina will answer in a little bit. Okay. So Regina, we answered that one. Thank you. Okay, and Sue, you're going to send me the file about the... I've got to clean up my system here. Hang on just a minute. Okay, that's a different answer. Okay, so Sue didn't send that to me yet. Okay. Sharon, if you want to try to send me that file that you sent your friend that should have been like 9 inches and it came open up, it's 1 inch in the Cricut design space, let me know. I can try to take a look at that. Okay, can you scale the whole project after you have finished it, designing it, through that window that you just had open a minute ago? So K, I believe that's, are you talking about in Popup Card Studio? And yes, okay. And the window that I had open was the rendering options. Oops, let me get to the right one here. Yeah, let's get rid of some of this stuff. Okay. So you can scale it in the sense of, where did your question go here? Yeah, so you can scale it. So you're limited. So the scaling options you're limited to are, in essence, you have 3 options basically. No scaling at all. So it will, and we saw this last week or the week before when we were doing the 180-degree cards, because they're 4 times as long instead of 2 times as long. So if I defined a card, a 180 card as a 5 by 8. 5 down, 8 across, I'd actually need 20 inches of card length, because I'd have 4 panels. So in that case, you can scale the scale to the page size. So if I had an 8.5 by 11, it would scale the 20 inches down so it would fit on the 8.5 by 11, or 11 inches basically. So if my project is too large to fit on the page that I have currently selected, it will scale it down, or I can scale it up if it's too small. Those are pretty much, or not scale it at all. And it goes by whatever your current printer setup is and page size. So if I select letter, that's what it's going to be. If I sit here and say, let's do ledger, oops, it's going to print, but it's not going to print. Oh no, that was page setup, so we should be okay. But if I did a print preview, you would see it would scale it down, or scale it. It would not scale. So this is 11 inches this way, so it obviously fits 11 by 17 very nicely. If I use that scale up, and then do the print preview, you see it makes it so that it will fit on. In this case, it just widens it enough because it can't go any wider because you'll get off the paper. So it always keeps the aspect ratio. And then when you render this, this I don't think scales at all. Get test. And let me open up, make the cut. Yeah, that's still going to be the 8 by 10. So the scaling only is when you're printing it, and it also would not be if you were going to your machine. Export work project rendering to machine. This would still be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 there, and 10 inches high. And not sure about PDF. I think PDF, even though you can technically choose paper size in PDF, I don't think it gives you the choice when you do this. Nope. So when you do that, it should still fit. Kind of hard to see here. Oops. Sorry, I want to go this way. So this is still the 8 by 10. Actually, that fits on an 8 by. It fits. It just creates a page size. Let's see what page size it thinks this is. Yeah, it thinks it's 8.5 by 11, but it's not. I'll have to look at the PDF. But so bottom line though is it's not going to the rendering options to change the scale here is only when you're printing it. It won't change it when you render it out to an SVG file or to the machine. Okay. Okay. That was I'm almost getting down to where we should be here. Okay. Okay. So we answered that one. And Barbara, we talked about your suggestion about opening it up in Inkscape or Make the Cut, and then checking what the size is. Okay, so the next one is a web page thing we're going to do. So going from Make the Cut to PCS, I don't have to do anything. Oh, for Nan, so you say going from Make the Cut to Popup Card Studio, you don't have to do anything for your UPI. I'm assuming your user units per inch, right? You don't have to do that. They're compatible with each other. And then Liz, let me just make sure because you gave us a website or a forum thread. Get to my forum. This was a question about Macs and SVG files. Yes. So she had two issues. One is with the 90 DPI. Well, she was looking at older things where you could specify, but when she imports it, now it's not the right size, and that's the 90 versus 72, and she can fix that by doing the 125 % increase, or I need to tell her, because she opened up a support ticket too, so I've been going back and forth with her on email. The other option is that I'm going to have her try is actually in, and Julie, you might be able to try this too, is in Scal, set the DPI to 90 and then export it and see if it comes in at the right size. And then this one with the wording together, it gives her a problem when she exports it from Scal 2, but when she exports it from Scal 3, it doesn't give her that problem. So I've asked her for a file from Scal 2 to demonstrate that issue. But that's, again, both of these are not, I don't believe are Mac specific. I think they're SVG specific. And yeah, so that's that one. Okay, so Liz, hopefully that
Silhouette Studio exports always come in small in any software.
Well, they export in millimeters. They use millimeters as their size instead of points that Illustrator uses and Sure Cuts a Lot sort of uses. They use points, but they call it pixels, which is incorrect, and that's a whole nother issue. But in the and maybe she didn't say it in here, but in the email to me, it was the files that she was exporting. The file that was where she was creating the SVG from was from Sure Cuts a Lot between version 2 and version 3. She's using Silhouette Studio to open the SVGs, and she doesn't have those issues. But the SVGs themselves were created in the examples that she's told me about via email were created from Sure Cuts a Lot 2 and Sure Cuts a Lot 3. So I'm waiting to hear that, and I suspect that this issue with the text might have to do with because when Sure Cuts a Lot, the SVG that she sent me from Sure Cuts a Lot 3 had both the outline and the fill defined, and sometimes if you have an odd number of those things defined, it could screw things up. So I'll wait till she sends me that file, but again, I'm pretty sure it's SVG related. But thanks for bringing that up, because that obviously from this post it looks like it's Mac related. Okay. Okay, Sue's going to send me that. Can you leave out PC? Yes. Do not try. So she'll send me the file. Okay, so the next question is, yeah, okay, and Julie already answered that. Pretty much any raster image program, excuse me, scratch that. So the question was, what about Photoshop files? Can we import into Make the Cut in PCS? Photoshop files you can so Photoshop is the raster image editing program for the most part. It does do some scalable vectors, SVGs, but for the most part it's considered a raster image program. And pretty much any raster imaging program you can save as either a PNG or JPEG or GIF or a TIFF or any of the supporting things that are, or any of the file formats that are supported by Make the Cut when you do pixel trace. The bitmaps, the JPEG versions, the GIF, TIFF, and PNGs. If you're exporting, my recommendation, so if you're creating something in something like Photoshop or Paint or GIMP, I use GIMP, regular Paint.net or Paint from Microsoft, any of those raster image programs, if you're going to save the file, I highly recommend saving it as a PNG file. And don't save it really, like don't create something really small. If you're creating it, don't create it small. Rather design it large, and then if you're going to save it, then scale it down to save it, but still save your large image. And then pixel tracing works better on larger images than too small of an images. If that makes sense. So basically any raster image program that's supported by Make the Cut, you can pull in, and in essence, once you pull it in, whether you're pixel tracing and that kind of stuff, it will. You can then transfer it over to Popup Card Studio. However, that doesn't hold true for just the actual texture, right? So a lot of times people, like I can pull in this is what we did last week, right? I can pull this in and say I want to bring in the whole image for some reason without doing any kind of pixel tracing, but I want I want the texture. This will just import into, I'm going to scale it down so it doesn't get too crazy here. But if I do a copy between that and then Popup Card Studio, it's just going to give me a box, because that's the only thing you can put into Popup Card Studio is basically vector graphics. Textures, which the background of this is basically texture, but the actual SVG is just 4 sides, a rectangle. So when I say pixel trace, I mean in the sense of pixel tracing it like like we did last week, where we did a let's see what I did white, I think. Texturize, apply. Actually, we're going to bring it down to 1. Apply. Import. Finish tracing. Bring it in. Do the layer. Get rid of 1. And then I know that. Yeah, we talked about that. Let's do the blackouts of these. Okay. Now, and then do a split, right? So now I have individual shapes, and I can still bring these in to Popup Card Studio, but again, I'm just going to get the shape. I'm not going to get the texture. That doesn't translate in Popup Card Studio. Popup Card Studio is strictly vector graphics. Okay, so that was a long answer to something that Julie already answered, but there we go. Okay, Sharon, so you'll send that to me tomorrow. And Kay, we answered that question. Okay, so I think we're caught up on everything except the 3 larger questions. And so before I start, basically we have 3 questions here. One is, how would you make a pop-up pop-up Easter basket? So she can't get one to look good. She's been trying using the arch steps and add some roundness. That's one. Then another one is from Jeanette that wants a demo of drawing with the Bezier curve. So Jeanette, just tell us, was that in Make the Cut or was that in Popup Card Studio? And then
I think this relates to the question last week that she asked. I referred her to a tutorial, and she's saying she can't find a tutorial and wants me to show how to draw a wavy line in Make the Cut.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. You have a good memory. Yeah, okay, so do you want to do that one now? Or do you need some, or is that putting you on the spot?
Why don't you do the other? I'm still practicing.
Oh, okay.
You have to practice to do that, and my mouse isn't cooperating, so let me practice a little more.
See that when you have
you do the other one.
Yeah, when you have the, hang on a minute. When you have new computers, you got to worry about things like that. Okay, how come I'm trying to get to that one website. Give me just a second here. Try it this way. Okay. Okay. I think I got the website now. Okay, so this was, she wants to make cards with this particular cutout design. So this looks like, it looks like what they're doing. Now I'm not sure how they're getting it to stand up, but this might be similar to a 180 card. Let's see if we can get a. So it's cutting out and folding up, but I don't know what's holding it up once it's up there. This would not be. I mean, you could do this in Popup Card Studio, but it'd be just as easy to do it and Make the Cut. Yeah, so they don't really show a side image of this or what's holding it up. I mean, it looks like it's thicker material, maybe a chipboard of some sort. Does she go over on?
Couldn't you make that with just the 180 duplicated?
Well, yeah. What I'm trying to do is find out from her, this specifically what she did. Because if you look at some of these that we can see through here, see, it's not done that same way. Like there's not a 180. There's not another side of this that and you don't see any kind of gap there. So you could do it in the 180 mode, especially the way that Susan showed, where you cut them as basically two halves and then put them together. But I was just trying to see if
being that they're only pop mats, they might only just be sitting up with nothing coming behind it.
Yeah. So there's not really mat. Yeah. So it must be material that's that's thick enough that will hold the fold, and but as soon as you can't fold it up and down too many times, and it's not meant to be.
I reckon they'd fall over all the time too.
Yeah. I wish they showed a side view. The top view didn't really.
Lee says maybe it's acetate.
Yeah, but you still have to. You have to. I mean, this is the only top view one is from here, so it doesn't really. Let's see, does it show 9 by 13? I had to look through it. But as far as the actual design of any of these, you could do that easily in Popup Card Studio or Make the Cut. If you wanted something like this, it might be easy, to do it more like a 180 card. You could do that in Popup Card Studio, following Susan's demos. Some of it's just kind of neat designs where they have the animals within animals here, sort of peeking out. But again, some of this, I don't know, this is probably laser done to get those finest circles in there. Yeah, it's kind of hard to, I can't view image here. Anyway, I'll look at that. I'll look at that. Maybe we can do something next week for that. But just something, something like this. Somebody else had asked about, I think, butterflies too. In Popup Card Studio, you can use the hinge effect, but the problem is your hinge, in this case, this part of the butterfly or this part of the butterfly would have to be basically 90 degrees or 180. It have to be horizontal or vertical lines in Popup Card Studio, but it'd be easier in Make the Cut.
Brian?
Yeah.
Go to Google Images and type in pop mats, and you can see different views of those pop mats.
2 words?
Hang on. No, 1 word.
Okay. Okay. It doesn't show it much different there, but that's right at the edge, so obviously there's nothing behind it. That's straight up and down. So I guess they are pretty close to the edge there on most of them. Doesn't give us much better view. Oh, these might. So it doesn't look like there's anything holding it. Well, in fact, these are sort of slanting back. That's interesting. It looks like it's got 2 layers there. I wonder if there's something here that's, well, there's nothing there holding that up. Yeah, it'd be something to look into. The designs themselves, cutting them out isn't an issue. You can do that in Popup Card, like I said, Popup Card Studio or Make the Cut. The how they get it to stand without falling down would be something to investigate. So, who was that from? Who was asking that question here? Regina. So, I was gonna, oops, dump images. I just wanted to grab something real quick here. Okay, I'm just gonna take this one real quick. I don't really want the colors, but I just wanted to show you how we could do that. So I'm going to Make the Cut. So you pixel trace the shape, and all I really want is the shape. So I'm going to black it out here. Well, maybe I won't black it out. Maybe I do want to go by color here. Let's get just the black. Yeah, that'll be better. Import, finish tracing. So now I have this design, and if you look at this, they sort of get rid of the body and they just have the wings, right? And you can do that very easily a couple different ways. You can use the knife to split it, but what I'm going to do here is make sure that it's simplified here. and I'll zoom in. And all I'm going to do is go into node editing, and this can change based on what the end result you want it to be. Let's do this. Let's delete some of these curves that we don't need. That's okay. Let's get rid of that one there. Get that one there. So let me just get rid of, I'm going to do a split. And basically what I'm going to do is get rid of the body and the bottom part of the body. And then we want to connect, we want to have a line here, but we don't want the line to be solid because then it would cut out. So what you would do is you would, on a different layer, and I'm going to lock this one. Actually, I'm going to create the line, but I'm going to do it above and below it because I don't want it to connect. And I just basically, and you'll see what I'm doing here. Because even if I lock the layer, it's going to snap to the ends there. And then I can take this and bring it down. Get into editing mode. Come on. There we go. And just bring it, where you want the folds to be. And that's not quite lining up, but you get the general idea. But straight up and down, it's a little bit easier to do. Like that. And these would, I'll signify that these are the score lines by using the dash parts. And now, you can put this butterfly anywhere, and those fold lines would be good. And then when this actually cuts out, it will cut out. Sorry, I don't want to cut it out. I want to look like what it's going to cut out. It would cut out, so everything on here, it's kind of hard to view it. But if the red was the card, so all my inner parts of the butterfly wings would fall out, and then I can't move my cursor because this will disappear, but you'll see that the outline of the wings are going to cut, except where they're scored. So you would fold them there, and then you could pop up the wing parts so it would look something like this, if you want it. The same thing with any of these shapes. You could do the shapes, and then wherever you wanted the fold lines, put the fold lines. In the case of something like this, where you're lying it flat and you want it to pop up straight up, you'd want to make sure those fold lines are on the same, same plane, or they're straight across, horizontal or vertical, depending on what you're doing in Make the Cut. Okay.
Lee wants to know, why couldn't that be an open path rather than adding a dashed line?
Oh, you could, but then you would still have to score, depending on how far apart this was here. So she's just saying don't even have the scored lines, just leave it like that. You could, but you'd have to score that. You'd probably want to score it so that you get a nice clean fold there. But you wouldn't have to. If they were close enough together, you wouldn't have to do it. Or I guess it depends on the material too. But the scoring is just for making the fold easier. Well, yeah, but to lift it up, right? You're still lifting it up. It's still a fold. If all you do is lift it up without creasing it at some point, it's just going to fall back down, right? You want to give it some form. Now, you may not want to have it folded up as much as this, but if you don't define that crease somehow, either by hand or with a scoring tool or with dash lines or a solid line not cut all the way through, it's just going to flop back into place. I mean, when you lift it, you've got to change the structure of the paper, I guess. But I mean, you can try it, but even if you're lifting it, you're still creating some sort of change in angle of the material. Okay.
I can do that demo of the wavy line now.
Okay, let me just check with Sue's thing. So she's saying that she can't. So when you go, Sue, you go to your library and your shapes, which I probably don't have anything there. So let me go to the polygons. You're saying that when you double-click on something, what did you say, the square? Double-click on the square. Oh, well, where's the square here? I know it's right in front of me. Oh, there it is. So the question is, no, it'll still do it. Okay. It should do it. When you're copying and pasting, you've got to be in selection mode. But when you're coming, no matter what mode you're in here, if you go to your basic shapes and click on something, it's going to put it on that layer. So it's going to put it up on the, depending on what layer you are, it's going to put it in the upper left. So if I'm on that plane and I go there, let's do something different, you can see it puts it in the upper left. You know, you have to move it down to where you want it. So I'm not sure what problem you're having there, but it should work. And let me know if that square was something, if that was in this library, the main library, or you actually created something. Well, here, let me just try it real quick. I'm going to take this lion, and I'm going to say File, Export, Selection to your library. I'm going to call it Lion. So make sure you're saving a folder. Oh, where did I tell it to save? New folder. There you go. You can tell I've never done this before. So now let's change planes. Go here. Go to My Shapes. Click. There's my lion. Double click on the lion, and there he is. So I'm not sure what you're doing wrong there either. So okay, let me switch over to Julie. Julie. There we go. Should be coming over to you here. Okay, we see your screen.
The question had to do with how to draw a wavy line last week. This is called a sine wave, and it's a little tricky. So well, I do recommend that you print out the instructions. That's what I had to do. So let me show you where the instructions are. If you go to MTC Toots Yahoo group, and you have to be a member to get in there, but then you click on Files. If you don't see Files at the top of the page, click on More, then click on Files, and it's in the Advanced Lessons folder, and it's lesson number 13. So you scroll down, 413, make rickrack and wavy lattice. You don't have to do the whole lesson. It's just the first 3 pages that show you how to draw a wavy line. So I print that out every time I want to draw a wavy line, and I talk to myself while I do this. Okay, so the file looks like this, and the first thing you want to do is in Make the Cut, you want to set your virtual mat to green, and you want to set your snap position to a 1/2 inch. That's if you were drawing this is if you wanted a 1/2 inch sine wave. If you wanted a full inch sine wave, you'd set this to 1 inch. I wanted to do a smaller wave, so I set mine at 1/2 inch for this tutorial. In order to draw in the tutorial, I give you some points so you could draw dot to dot. Even if, so when you're in Make the Cut, there's no numbers or dots to follow, but what we do have is grid lines. So what we're going to do is start on the corner, and we're going to we got to first we got to, you can type F5, or you can click on this figure 8 in the upper left corner to open node editing, and click on this draw Bezier curve straight line. It says F4 here. Uh-oh, I better fix my tutorial, it changed. Okay, you don't want super smooth or fat path or anything like that. Just click on the pen tip icon. And what you're going to do is, you might not have to talk to yourself when you do it, but I have to because my finger doesn't do it from my mind. I have to hear myself say it. So left click to start and drag, release your mouse. And then go to the next corner, left click and drag, release. Left click and drag, release. Left click and drag, release. And it'll drag right to that corner because you've got your snapping on. So left click on the 1-inch lines and hold the mouse key down and release it at the 1/2-inch mark above it. Don't touch the mouse button except to move the mouse to the next corner. Left click and drag, release. I also zoom in close on this so I can see. So it's left click, drag, release. Left click, drag, release. Left click, drag, oops, I did something wrong. Release. Now you want to end up your line at the release point here by right-clicking. Now I let go of my mouse while I was dragging and I got this weird thing, but I'm going to leave it right there and then click on this node editing tool at the top of the bar, and then just click on that line, left click, and I'll hit my delete key to take that part off. And I have a sine wave here. Again, I had to practice quite a bit to remember. So give yourself some time to practice doing this sine wave if you want to get a wavy line. But you can get a very perfect wavy line like this if you set your snapping to a 1/2 inch. So any question about that?
Oh, let's see. Sorry. Nope, I don't see any
No
questions.
I put this under advanced tutorials because it's just, it doesn't look hard, but when you try to do it, it's hard. It's hand-eye coordination that I must be short on or something. I read the instructions and I follow it step by step. I think anybody can do it if I can.
Okay. Let me just make sure does anybody have any question for Julie? Jeanette says, perfectly clear, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So did either Julie or Susan want to take a stab at the Easter basket? Otherwise, I can try to take a stab at it.
I've been working on it. I've been working on it all webinar long, and I haven't got there yet.
Okay.
So you can have a stab at it.
Well, oh, just so you can make your stuff look really good.
It would be like an upside-down cake, wouldn't it?
Well, you could do...
She wants it curved.
Yeah.
Well, cake is curved. She wants the sides curved.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and bring back the... my screen here. Oops, show my screen. Okay, so let's see. So let's open a new Popup Card Studio, and I probably would start on the bottom. And let's go ahead and make the, so like I would probably do, like, you know, if somebody had done, it might have been you, Sherry, actually, that did the wishing well. You know, so a basket with, in essence, straight up and down sides would be easier. Although I'm sure you could come up with some way to do a slant sides as well. If you, but I would probably start with the bottom, decide what I want in terms of. I'd probably put on split mirror too here. And let's say we sort of wanted a more of an oval type of basket. And then I would just start with this. I know Susan's going to say something, I can tell already. I would, you know, basically that would be my bottom. I would Control C or copy it, and then go up to, say, I don't know, 2.5 inches high maybe, and then paste it. Use this as sort of the template, and then do your, in essence, you know, one piece, like the bottom of a birthday cake, I guess. Quad, leave the split mirror on, and make this a little easier for me. And just, my mouse makes noise in the microphone. I don't know if you guys can hear that. It's like a squeaking noise. Gotta go back one here. Oops. I don't know if I'm hitting all these. I'm doing it kind of fast. And on this one, we'll just turn off the split mirror. Do that last one. Boy, that doesn't look like an Easter basket at all, does it? Oh, well, you know, we got to maybe add a handle. So maybe at maybe at 1/2 inch. And let's draw. Let's bring in a circle. You know what? Before I do that, let's do make it look like a handle of some sort. So let's do a shadow. Except double and join, or just join them. And now we're gonna have to stretch it. That's probably too big too. Well, probably not do the boolean join until after, or not do the. Let's get about the right size first, and then we'll can do the handle part of it. Shadow. Do a join. Oops. Now, let's take our let's do about there. Okay, we really can't have it at the 1/2 inch mark because that's too close to the other one. So let's do a Control X, which would copy it and cut it, and then let's go back, whatever layer this is, let's go back a little bit further. Yeah, we'll do it there. It may not look good there, but let's try it here. Make sure it's down. Oops. Center down. Okay. And then, oh, we have to do a little top to it as well. And then you might even want to if you want to stuff it, I should have done that too. Yeah, we'll leave it there. And that's too high for a basket, I know. We'll have to shorten that up. But you'll get the general idea. And Sue's thinking, or Sherry's thinking right now, I should have just gone with doing it myself instead of asking Brian to do an example of it. Crud. Okay. And then the last part is let's do Control E. Oops. Select mode. I'll just bring it in again. Oh no, actually I'll just do bezier curve here. Okay, so draw them normally, and we want to cut out the inside of this. I should have gotten we put that. Oops. Oh boy. Was I on the wrong layer? Hang on a minute. Let me go back here. Where did I just draw that? Hang on a minute. I was on the wrong layer. Sorry. Now do that. We'll get the general idea here. Do a join of that one. So it doesn't look anything like a good Easter basket. I'd probably you should probably just cut it all the way off here. I don't know. I'd do something like that. Susan, well, let's first see if there's any questions about my horrendous Easter basket. I mostly have it figured. I just need a little bit more work. You want the handles and the top to be edge to be scalloped like a weave. Oh, so similar to your red Solo cup, yeah. Let's picture the one I made. Nancy, you can email it to me if you want. That means the original ovals. Okay, wait, I'm getting too many. Okay, so Sherry, yeah, actually, so you were the one that did the red Solo cup, right? So the body would be sort of like a squashed version of that and more oval, maybe. but you want the handles and the top edge to be scalloped like a weave. I guess I'm drawing a blank on what you mean there. Nancy, if you want to email it to me at sbrianw@gmail.com, I can show it to people, or if you want to post it on the forum, you can do that. And then Nan said, okay, when Brian made the original ovals for the basket, could the top oval have been larger than the bottom oval? Yeah, so you could, but you'd have some issues there. So I think what Nan is saying is, again, start down the bottom, and let's do arch steps. I'm not going to create all of them here, but split. And I'm going to start out by making two ovals the same size, well, sort of ovals. But here's the issue. So I'm going to do a weld there, copy that, and let's only go up, like say an inch. We'll make it a short one. And then paste it there. Now I could make the bottom smaller, but if I want anchors to go vertical, I can't make it smaller that direction. So basically I would have to squash this so I could get the edges to slant, but basically the connecting parts would still be, how far did I come in there? And you can't, when you do the anchors, you can't do auto quad because these actually got smushed, so these are a little bit skinnier than the top ones. So you basically would have to come down and do all the, I think I got them right. I keep on wanting to do that auto quad thing here. Oops, there we go. Let's see if we can see this a little bit better flattened down here. And it looks like I probably missed that. Yeah, I probably did miss it. I'd have to look, but in essence, because we squished these in, the bottom layer we squished in to the sides, that means each of these steps are not going to be quite as wide as the steps up here. But if we didn't have these, if we didn't have from front to back the same level, then, or the same width, then you couldn't do anchors, because your anchors have to be basically 90 degrees up. So is that sort of what you were talking about, Nan? Yeah. And then Barbara had a good suggestion. So could you curve the outside piece? So let's go back to this last piece here. So you could curve it, let's say about halfway there. And oops, I curved it too much there, but you could curve that last piece, to get a little bit of an idea there. Actually, you could curve all of them, but yeah, you'd have to do it the same all the way around, maybe, to have it look good. Let's see. This is why I'm not a designer, I would have to go halfway down. Oops. Oops. I keep on forgetting I can. Oops. Let me get there. I want to zoom in, move it up so I can see it a little bit better here. So maybe, well, that's going to be wrong too. So back up. I have the snapping on an 1/8 of an inch, so it doesn't help. I'm not doing very good curves here, as you can tell. And this, by taking the snapping off, then I have a harder time catching the edges. And if you did it this way, now again, think that you had. Let's do this. anybody wants to cut in here, Susan or Julie, feel free to cut in here. So let's do this. Oops. I'm going to get delete that node, make this neutral, and then curve it the way I want it. Basically you'd want to have a nice curve like that. And then I'd have to do the same thing over here. Oops. Flip it, flip it. I'm going to have to adjust this once we bring it in here. So delete those. Control V. Oops. No, I do Control V, but I'm going to have to. Oops.
Brian, I think it would be good for to have some time to practice this during the week. Maybe we could address it next week.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cutting.
I'm nearly there. I'm nearly there.
Okay.
I think I've got something.
Okay.
So Barbara,
you said curve it curve it and make the cut before you cut it. Oh, you could. So let's say I brought in this. This is sort of incomplete. Basket. Poor basket. Oops. That may be, but again, it could get consistency of the curves. You're saying so you'd bring it in here, oops, and then go through and edit these lines in here now. So you'd have to. The problem that you would have is some of these overlap, so you'd have to make sure you work on the correct. Like this one wouldn't be too bad. You'd have to determine the curve that you wanted, and you can see I missed here. This really should be over here anyway. This should be over here. And this one, see, this got cut off by this one where we'd really want this to be in front anyway. But yeah, you could possibly do that too. Let's see. Who asked that original question? That was
Sherry.
Sherry, okay. And no one sent me a picture yet.
Can you say your address again, your email address for Nancy?
Oh, it's sbrianw@gmail.com. So, oops, yeah, I know I'm in edit. So it's sbrianw@gmail.com.
Okay, I've got sort of the same sort of thing.
Okay.
But I haven't worked out how to do the top. But if I show you what I can do.
Okay, so let me switch over to you. You ready for me to switch over to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I thought I was ready. Hang on 1 second. Sorry. Now, you should be able to see my screen.
Give me a second here. Yep, we can see your screen. So I'm going to go ahead and go on mute.
Right, I had to look at this as not using the steps. With a lot of trial and error. So we'll start on point 25 at the moment. We bring in a oval. Make it huge so it's shaped sort of like you'd want it down the bottom. It's still huge, right? Now, I haven't worked out how to do the top yet, but this is the starting point. So we crop off the top, and we crop off here. Okay, now put that in the center and the bottom. Now, right, we'll zoom in. Now we'd be on a snapping of 1/4 inch, and we're going to go copy that, paste that, and just move it in, not 1/4 inch, we take it in twice. Two, copy that and paste that, take it in twice, because we're going to bring it out once. Of course, you can make the basket shorter. I'm just showing you the idea. Copy and paste. Being on 1/4 inch snapping takes you in, each time you click it over, it takes you in 1/4 inch. Okay. Now, we make sure they're all on the bottom plane. I think I did. First off, I better check. Yep. Okay. Now, what we do is leave the backmost one there. We cut them. We go up one, so we're only coming out 1/4 inch. Then we're pasting it. Take the uppermost two. Cut that.
Much easier than my way.
Go up one, which is 0.25. Go paste. Take this one. Of course, you can make these a bit curvier. You've got to have enough left behind to anchor to the card. So you select the innermost one, you cut that, go up 1/4. Because you've come in 1/2 inch, you can come up 1/4 and it won't overlap your one behind it. And that sort of gives you the basket shape. Now, of course, it's a very tall basket. We do the auto quad. I'm going to do it on a 1/8. This is what other people can have ideas for this, because I haven't really worked this out. But if you go past the prior one, so I'm going to put an anchor from this one, past this one here, then you put an anchor here going past the one in front of it, so they're going to be joined where they're going past. And this one to the end. So that's one side. What you have to do to make sure your set orders in the right order is put this one in and that side in. But I just wanted to show what I came up with, and then you can put your handle on there. So is that sort of like what Sherry was after?
She hasn't responded. She said that when she made the red solo cup, it was a modified trapezoid, and each plane was just reduced in width. So I asked her if it was the same, sort of how you're doing the partial oval now, and she hasn't gotten back to me. But she had also said something. She also said something about having the edges scallop like a weave. So she wanted a weave look, I guess. Yeah, she said that's somewhat what she. Yeah, it's similar to what she did, or what she did. So.
Yeah. So when you do the top, you just weld the two, and that gives you your arch steps. So even like if you took a lot more off the bottom, and made the basket smaller, you could probably bring it out further. So
yeah, let me.
Now I have seen the woven handles done as woven handles, but I can't remember how that's exactly. Can you still hear me? I'm just getting a message saying I've lost connection.
No, yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay. I know there's a way of cutting the handles so you can weave them around, but I was more working on the basket part first.
Yeah. So let me take and she sort of did what you did at the top there, but then on the here, let me just show let me take the screen back here for a moment. Okay, so Nan or somebody had asked where the red solo cup that she was talking about, and that's this here. So you can see the same idea. It's a trapezoid, and she sort of did it the same way that that Susan just showed right now, where she, on each level she just made it skinnier. So she had 6 levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels. Created the top, and then she made the top, the inside of the top, a semicircle out of that. So I guess the questions here. So so this actually might be a good homework. Sherry suggested that this would be a good homework of doing some sort of 3-dimensional Easter basket. Then Nan had asked that question, or the solo cup. So it's red solo cup pop-up PNC is the name of the thread. 38226 is the number. And then let me show. So Nancy had sent me her take on it. Now hers is a different take. So let me bring in. Where's my? So this is the make the cut portion of it. So you can see the colors and everything, and then the Popup Card Studio is here. So let me just angle it here. Oops, get full screen here. So in the in this version you don't see all the stuff that's on the inside, but she added some stuff to go on the inside here to look. So I guess she's going to do some sort of print cut maybe of that. I don't know. And then she also gave an SVG. Let me see if I can get that open. Did she have that on blue? I think. SVG. Not that one. That's my lion. It might just be this one. Oh, it's just the Popup Card Studios exported as SVG, so it's just that one. So it's the same thing. Does that. So that's in essence just a one section, one plane, and then she has the Happy Easter cutting out of the bottom. And she knows there's mistakes, like, the middle of the A's and P's are going to pop out because these are not stencil cards, or they'll fall out, I should say. And you can work with dimensions too. That's another way to look at it. But if you want it to be 3D, like, I shouldn't say 3D because the pop-up card is 3D, but multiple planes, sort of like this cup here. That would maybe be the way to do it. So that's a good homework. Good homework assignment is and then maybe try to get that scallop look so it looks like a weave on it. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so Jeanette, can't visualize the handles or a picture of what is wanted. I guess that's a question for you, Sherry, is when you're talking about the scallop top. Let's just do this. Leaves, woven handle, woven basket. How about that? Easter basket. Yeah, none of these have a really good. This would probably be. Oops. Sorry. Probably maybe shows the sort of a scallop edge there, which you might be able to do, but you'd have to fit it in between the. You'd have to have edges. You have to have space on both sides so that the top could anchor to the vertical. Let's see what other. That handle's not really woven. This sort of has a woven effect. Well, these are really good examples. That's probably not too bad for. Is that sort of the effect that you want? Google Easter basket clip art. Okay. Easter basket clip art. Okay. So like this type of handle. Or this type of handle. Yes. Okay. So she wants sort of the effect of these type of handles, and then maybe even this type of edging. These don't really show side straight from the side. So there you go. I mean, so it would be hard to do with going back to your solo cup. Let's just pretend this is short, squat, and rounded instead of trapezoid. You still have the same type of top here. And so what you like, obviously the very top or the very middle one, you can play around with the scallops, but you'd have to leave space between the scallops so that it could come in, because where it attaches, it's got to be flat. And I don't think you'd want this at the top of your scallops, because then your scallops would sort of have a flat edge to all of them, and then I don't know, maybe you could do it that way too. But I'm thinking maybe doing the scallops with space in between them, so that they can attach. The top part here this part of it can attach to the vertical part, and then on the sides here is do it just sort of maybe smaller, just so there's some space in between, on either side of the scallop that would come in. Try to use the semicircle and wrap ovals around it. Yeah, you might have to. Yeah, I'd have to fool around with it. So I think you're right. I think it's a good homework assignment. Again, what she's looking for is something, that has this effect. For the handle, it'd probably be not too hard, because your handle's going to be. Where are we here? Well, that's. Even though this is a poor example, your handle is going to be sort of solid here. So the only place it's going to anchor is probably one or maybe three places, and so you could make that scallop on both ends, both sides. The other thing you could possibly do is do scallops, basically using the hinge, so they'd fold up. On the inside, so when you're looking at it from the side view, you'd see the scallops behind it, but actually the scallops, let me just show you what I'm talking about here. So let's go. Okay, so let's say we had that, and I'm just going to do a really poor example here. So on this level, but I'm going to be over sort of in front of this one, is do a, and I got to get my snapping down smaller than that. Okay, this was a oops, this was not a good example. Well, you could place them anywhere, but okay, so that's without an anchor, but see how it's back behind it, and you'd want to, I don't think that's going to render right, but well, yeah, it would fold up, so you'd have to fold those up by hand because there'd be nothing to anchor to it, but you might be able to get that, you know, from the front view. If you had these all along, might give that scallop a look, but I don't think that would stand up very much. You could do a separate piece glued on. Is the white top of the solo cup connected to the red part? Yes. So if we look at here, this basically, the white, what you see here, is the anchor for all these vertical pieces. Oops, there I am. I'm right-clicking and trying to scroll this up. So this, you know, these are, you know, valley foot, just like a normal vertical piece, and with the anchor going back, except that the anchors for all of them are connected together. Oh, here's another idea, especially for the handle. Hang on just a minute, Susan. Is you could use similar to Susan's, when Susan did the gazebo with the railing, but she had the vines going around the pole. You could do something like that. It would just be a little bit thicker and more evenly spaced. Like just pretend that this blue is the piece instead of the vine. You know, you could do something like that. Go ahead, Susan.
I can show the handle now.
Okay. Let me switch back to you. And make you the presenter.
Okay, when I was away, Leslie did say, yeah, you could use the gazebo idea, and I didn't see that. But this is the handle. It's in two pieces.
Oh, yeah. Very good, Leslie.
When you're putting it together, you cut one out, and you cut them both out separately, then you weave it around. You just roll it around like I did the gazebo. So how I come at doing that is I got a zigzag. I should have done this prior. Well, I should have had snapping on maybe. Okay, so we go back to the select tool, and with that, just make it a bit bigger, and I hold the control key down, and when it changes into the funny shape, it warps around, and then I go, I only want one, and take the repeat off, and we go accept that. So now I have that. Oh, it did make a funny shape, but that's okay because we'll flip that, and we're going to shadow that. Let's say that, and we go, we'll do a copy of that, and we twist it. So you sort of eyeball it that it's going to be so you can weave them afterwards. Then with those two selected, of course, I did this one a bit neater, but this is just so you can get the idea. I don't want that one, so we just want the outside, the shadow one, not the other one. So we put them on there. Then we grab the erase tool and erase it with the control key held down. Erase it across there. Then you split them apart and you go cut them, break this one apart as well and take them away. So then what you end up with is the two pieces. So you would cut this one out, then this one out, and then what you do is you weave it around like I did my gazebo lesson, and then what you end up with is a two-tone, even just one tone, it doesn't matter, handle. And of course you can use the same idea. Julie was just showing how you could do the wavy curves, and I haven't done it for a while, so I didn't do it with the wavy curves, but you could do this with the wavy curves and then use the warp to twist it. So that's one way of doing the handle. So I hope that helps. Is there any questions? So of course you'll cut these out separately and glue them onto you. And I'd take a shadow of this put together when I'm building my pop-up card, and go, yeah, what am I talking about? Hang on, go like this, and I go weld that. And I'd use this when I'm designing the card, and then glue this on afterwards. So I hope that helped.
Yeah, Sherry says thank you. I don't see any other questions on that about how you did that, so looks like you did a good job there. So that's your homework assignment.
I haven't watched much of the webinar today, sorry.
No. Excuse me. Because you were working on that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. No other questions?
Let me check here. No other questions. Let's see if there's anybody with their hand raised. Nobody with their hand raised. So let me do excuse me. Let me go ahead and stop the recording here.